Hey, it's Rich, the Louisiana hobby guy. Today we're going to be talking, we're going to get in depth on kerf offset and how you can make things like this and like this using your kerf offset. And a lot of people have a misconception on how it's done. We're not going to dilly-dally around. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I prototype things, and I'll show you the kerf offset in the prototyping. And then the second thing that I'll do is we'll actually make this earring today, and I'll show you how to put this together with only pressure and no glue. So let's jump into it right away and get started. All right, let's talk about what kerf isn't, since so many people are misunderstanding what it is. So I'm going to take one of my puzzles here and try and explain it right here. So a lot of people think that if you do a kerf offset that this puzzle is going to fit better together. Well, it's not. that has nothing to do with kerf offset. This puzzle is going to cut out, this kerf in here is going to be the size of your laser beam no matter what you do. You only have one laser beam, you can't change it in the software. Let me demonstrate what kerf really is. So let me come down here to my Valentine, my hearts, and let me take this heart and make it, yeah, 2 inches is good. So what the kerf is, let's say that you have a piece like this, an earring. So let's ungroup this and let's go ahead and duplicate this one and move this one off to the side like that. So what you want to do is you want to cut this out, and then you want to cut this out of, say, another material. Let's say that you want to cut this out of red and you want to cut this out of black material. But you want this piece to fit inside here after it's cut. That's what the kerf is about. Now I'm going to use a dramatic kerf for this demonstration because I'm using some 3/16 inch polystyrene foam board to do this with. This is my prototyping materials. My kerf is going to be a lot larger on this because it's going to melt away a bunch of that material. So I'm going to take this one and put it on another layer. So now we've got this on the blue, and I've got the right speed and power. Because it's polystyrene foam boards, I'm going to do a 1 millimeter outward kerf. So what that just did was it made this larger, this piece right here, so that it will fit inside this hole that's being cut out. You could do the same thing up here just by locking this out and making it 1 millimeter larger. But this is how you would do it in the software, and typically I'm going to be over here somewhere on my kerf offset. Like, let's say if I were doing this out of acrylic on this machine, I would be 0.05. That's how much bigger I need to make it for the acrylic to fit, because the acrylic is not going to vaporize like the polystyrene will. So I would do 0.05. But I know that on my prototyping material, this foam board, that it's a 1 millimeter kerf offset. So I'm going to set that to 1 millimeters. I'm going to say OK, and we're actually going to run this job now. I've got the Monport 80 watt fired up. I've got a piece of my polystyrene down on the workbed there. Let me take a look at where it's at. I'm going to move this up here. I don't want to waste too much material, so I'll move that up there, and I'll move this guy up close like that, and that looks pretty good right there. I can turn off the camera showing it now. I know it's in the right spot, and I'll pull the camera out so that you can see this, and then I'll run this job and I will go over to the camera and show you how these two pieces fit together. So let me do a quick frame to make sure everything is okay, and that looks fine. And one thing I did forget to do was focus the laser, get it in the spot where the material is, and I'll come to the move tab and hit the focus. And there we go. So it is ready to run this job. I'm just going to hit the start button. and there are my two pieces. Let me move the laser head out of the way. And now I'm going to walk over and I'm going to show you how these fit together. So there you see that was a perfect fit. Didn't need to do anything other than put them together, give it a little squeeze, it went together. When I dropped it, they fell apart. But like I said, if this were being done on a piece of acrylic, the kerf would be much, much smaller because it's not vaporizing the foam board. And now just to give you an example of how this would be without the kerf, let me go ahead and reposition this work so I can run one more job without it. And we'll take and move both of these off just a bit. That looks pretty good right there. So now I'm going to run this job again, but I'm going to change the kerf offset to 0. And actually I don't even need to do that. What I can do is just put this on the red layer, and we'll come back over to the laser, and I will run this job one more time. Okay, move the laser out of the way. Now I'll go pick up these and I'll show you the difference. All right, so let's get away from the prototype material and let me show you the practical daily use for something like this. So I guess we'll make a 2-inch peace sign earring. That looks pretty good like that. And what I'm going to do now is, this will be a cutout out of black acrylic, and then I will cut out these inner pieces out of yellow acrylic, and we'll put them together. This is good just the way it is. And then what we want to do is grab just these inner pieces. Let me ungroup it first. We'll ungroup it. We'll grab just these inner pieces, press Ctrl and D to duplicate them and pull them off. So this will be our first cut right here on the black, and this will be our second cut here on the yellow. For right now, I'm just going to go ahead and delete this section that I just did here, because I can always undo the delete. I already have that saved now to my clipboard, so it's like copying it. So now let's go ahead and update the overlay and see where we're at. I have a piece of black 3mm acrylic on there now, so I'll get it into a spot where I think is good, and I think that's good right there. And actually, you know what? We can do, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. We can do both at the same time. So let me undo all of this. I will take this guy and put it right here, and I'll take this guy and put him right there. And now we have our two pieces, and we'll put him on the blue layer like that. So now we have two separate layers. I'm going to come to my cuts and layers. We have the red one's going to cut first, the blue one's going to cut second, and we don't really need to see the camera anymore. So now on this one, it's 3mm acrylic. On this Monport 80 watt, 15 and 50 is good for that. So there will be a 0 kerf offset on the red layer, and then on the blue layer I already know that my kerf offset is 0.55. I say 0.5, but it's actually 0.55, and we just need to assign the speed to it. So I'll jump to my library, 3mm cut, blue line, assign, and now we're good at 1550. I'll bring the camera out so that we can see this, make it bigger, and we can come to the laser and frame this job. As you can see, I really don't need the frame because I'm using the camera. So we will go ahead and just run this job, and I will just make sure that by coming back in here that I did do the kerf offset, and you see that it did not offset because I made some changes when I assigned it to the layer. So I'm happy that I came back in here and checked it. So that's one thing you always want to do right before you run the job. Make sure, in case there have been any changes, when I assigned the cut layer, it took away the kerf offset. So I'm glad that I checked that. So now we have the 0.055 on the blue, and we're ready to come to the laser and hit the start button. So we'll let that run, and I think, you know, my settings are a little bit too high on this. I need to tweak this library a little bit. The power is a little too high for 3mm acrylic, but it's okay. It doesn't really matter much. So we're almost done with the first one there. It's finishing the outside cut. And now we're doing the inside cut with the kerf offset on the second part of it. And it's just about done, and we can now go and take this off the laser. And let me move the head out of the way. I'll go take this off the laser and show you in real time what we've got. Oh, you know what? I shouldn't have done this one over here, because I wanted to do that one out of the yellow. Well, these are the mistakes that you get when it's in live time. We'll run this job again with the yellow one next. All right, that was my mistake with the yellow one. So we'll update this overlay real quickly. I'm just going to do this one very quickly. Move this off up here, and we will come to take this out again, and we'll come to the laser tab, and we will run this job. And now you'll see it's cutting out the inner parts. Hey, this is what happens when you get old, you know. You make all these kinds of mistakes without thinking, you know, so it's okay. It's not a big deal. So now we can get this camera back out of the way and go ahead and move the laser out of the way. And I'll go get those parts, and we'll go switch over to a live video so you can see the assembly. Okay, so this is what I've got off of the laser. Now, when you take these pieces off, you want to keep them in the same orientation that they came off, just exactly the way that they were cut. So I'm going to take my black main piece here, and I'm going to start fitting these pieces in, and you'll see that they sort of fit, but you have to push them into place. And you heard that snap in? And sometimes with the smaller pieces, they might be a little bit harder to snap in, and they have to be perfectly level. But here is our final product, and you pretty much don't need glue or anything else. If you get the right kerf offset, you can practice with this, make a few pieces, but this particular one right here, this one doesn't need any glue at all. Everything's snapped into place, and this is ready to wear. We can put an earring on it and go. So there you go. A perfect cutout. You don't need any glue or anything like that. You know, for safe measure, if you wanted to, you could glue the edges before you snap them together. I find glue messy, so I'd rather use the kerf offset and then just put some extra pressure on it to get it in place. And it's not coming out, so that's a permanent earring now. All right, so there you go. Job done. Now, let's talk for a minute about the kerf and the offset. The larger outward you go, the more tightly it's going to fit. You won't need any glue. You can just pressure fit them. I do it on a flat, solid surface. Try and get it as even as I can and push down on it, and then just push down hard and it snaps into place. And that's the best way to do it. So the misconception that most people have had is that it does something to the laser when you set the kerf offset. It doesn't. All you're doing really is making the second piece larger, and it's just that simple. So that's what the kerf offset is. And I know a lot of people think that it changes the laser, but it doesn't. So the things to keep in mind when you're doing your kerf offset is like anything else. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You have to run a test, and you have to make sure that the kerf offset is the same for whatever product that you're using. And even with some products where you use the same product, the offset is going to change. So I'll give you an example of that. I'll take a piece of acrylic. So let's say I have 3mm acrylic, like this acrylic here. Well, one manufacturer of the cast acrylic, my kerf offset might be 0.055. Another manufacturer, it might be 0.075. So it's based on the material as well, just like everything else in laser engraving. And I find it especially important with wood. So when I get a piece of wood, I can take 5 different manufacturers of 3mm Baltic birch plywood, 5 different suppliers, and they'll have 5 different kerf offsets. So it's important that, like with everything else, that you run a test to find out what that kerf offset is. And it's also very important, extremely important, that your bed is flat and level all the way across. So that's something else that you need to make sure of as well, because the minute you go out of level just a little bit, it's going to change the size of the kerf. When your laser defocuses or advanced focuses, the kerf is going to change. So your bed has to be perfectly level in order for this to work right for you. So those are the keys. Bed's got to be level, and your material has to be tested. And especially when you have materials like wood, the materials are all going to be different. So you'll have a different moisture content today than you will in 2 weeks with the same piece of wood. So plan for that, and make sure that you run those tests. And everything that I talk about in my videos, I talk about sacrificing a piece of material and running a test. Now, when you get to things like acrylic, like this, I can pretty much say I have notes in my Lightburn files. So I'll do show notes on certain types of acrylics that I do, like these earrings, okay, and all other kinds of earrings, where I put in the show notes section who the manufacturer was, what the kerf offset was, because I use about 4 different companies for acrylic. So I need to make sure that each of those 4 companies are listed in the show notes section of the Lightburn file. That way I know exactly what to set the kerf offset to. That's going to be pretty much constant when you're buying something like cast acrylic. The offset is going to be pretty much constant from the same supplier. So when I do acrylics, every single supplier has a different kerf offset, and I know that might sound a little crazy, but it's true. I can verify it because I've wasted a lot of material by not having the right kerf offset. So that's pretty much it. Once you learn how to use that kerf offset, and you start making these inlaid, which that's what this is, it's an inlaid product. Once you start making these inlaid products, you're going to find out how popular they are, how much people love them. And you know, my wife saw this one with the mirror finish, and right away she was like, oh, I want a set of those for earrings for the Saints games. So once people see them, you know, they want them. So you know, learn a little bit about the Kerf offset, how to use it on different products, you know, and get out there and make something, because these things are big sellers. You can do all kinds of colors, especially like if you're with a CO2 laser. If you have a CO2, man, you can just do all kinds of things. Like for Christmas, you can do, you know, red, green, and blue earrings that are very Christmassy, that have different parts to them, and they'll be very, very popular. So anyway, I hope that today's video addressed the Kerf offset and the misconceptions that people had about it. And you know, I love sharing this information with you. I hope you enjoy learning this information. We're both learning at the same time. You know, these are things I've picked up along the way that you know, I'm sharing with you. So I hope you enjoyed today's video as much as I enjoyed making it for you. And as always, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.